Let's talk to Annabelle Denham, Deputy Commentator at Telegraph. Annabelle, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I mean, I don't think I've ever known a Prime Minister to be so useless at public speaking. He can't seem to get the words right. He can't seem to get the words out. You know, we remember the releasing the sausages, which was very bizarre. Now, today, he's got mobile peace prizes, which somebody suggested to me you'd only get if you had your Nokia on silent. It's just bizarre, isn't it?
It is bizarre. It's not his inability to articulate from time to time, but rather his more general, extremely dour, expressionless delivery. I struggle to think of a Prime Minister in recent history who I've felt less inspired by when they've been public speaking. I did hear last year that part of the reason why he invested thousands of pounds in various pairs of spectacles was to give his face some intrigue and some interest, because was so motionless. And I do think that that's a problem when the economy is taking a nosedive, when there's this sense of malaise over what is happening to British society. You need a politician, a leader who is going to unite the country and take them with him. And unfortunately, we don't have that in Keir Starmer.
By the way. And that's the problem, isn't it? Because, you know, here we have, I mean, we saw John Rentoul earlier. I mean, he named 4 ministers above Rachel Reeves that he thinks should be probably fired before she is, you know, which tells you what a bad place the government is in. You know, you've got Tulip Siddiq, who's up to her neck in a corruption probe from Bangladesh, thanks to her auntie, who was run out of town, basically, for being a corrupt leader. You've got people who don't seem to know what they're doing in all manner of different places. Ed Miliband is being described as out of control. He's got his net zero kind of revolution coming, and he doesn't care about whether or not it's a threat to national security. He keeps boasting about how wind energy is going to be the top way to get energy into this country, even though our electricity bills are higher than they've ever been. You know, he's in charge of what can only be described as a clattering train, isn't he?
He is, Mike, but the question is, who would you replace them with? And of course, in the parliamentary tea rooms, it's rumoured that Labour MPs are starting to speculate about Rachel Reeves' future and who might be the next Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Pat McFadden seems to be the favourite at this stage. But there does seem to just be a dearth of talent in the upper ranks of the Labour Party, and perhaps no real pipeline of talent coming in at the more junior end. You're right to pull out Ed Miliband. The man is a credulous believer in climate alarmism. He's a complete fanatic who seems to think the economy comes behind the UK supposedly leading the world on climate change. You've mentioned Tulip Siddiq. There's also David Lammy. Let's not forget that Keir Starmer a few months ago was forced to convince us all that David Lammy would indeed be in post just a few years from now, by the time of the next general election, because of his various blunders, not least previous remarks about Donald Trump, the president-elect. There's also Angela Rayner, somebody who is on the left of the party, who I think is going to wreak terrible damage on the UK economy. Yes, if she can push through some of the housing reforms that she's promising, and we get planning liberalisation, and we finally get spades in the ground and we build more homes, well, that would be enormous progress on the previous Conservative administration. But look at what she is doing with trade unions, the way she's strengthening. Look at what she's doing with the employment rights bill. You had the chief of the CBI warning just this week that Labour need to delay imposing that legislation because businesses simply aren't going to be able to cope with it, and they'll be sacking staff before it comes into effect. You know, that across the cabinet, there are so many individuals who are dogmatic, who are far to the left, and who are going to be extremely harmful to the country.
Well, only today we've got the Times writing about this ludicrous notion that the workers' employment rights scenario is going to mean that pubs might ban you from talking about certain things, and restaurants might do the same, in case you upset the waiters and the waitresses and the bartenders and the people who are serving you the drinks and the food. You know, you can't talk about transgender rights. You might not be able to talk about religious beliefs. You know, you might not be able to talk about Keir Starmer. I mean, it's like living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare, isn't it?
Yes, it's a complete assault on free speech. Look, a couple of decades ago, we lost the battle when it came to employees taking on vicarious liability for the actions of employers, sorry, taking on vicarious liability for the actions of their employees, which meant that if an employee behaved badly towards another employee, then the harmed party could potentially take their bosses to court and get a payout. And that was one thing, and most people supported it. But now we're taking this even further, such that we're going to expect employers to protect, to shield their staff from the behaviour of customers. And if they fail to do so, then the employee could potentially sue their employer. Now, this is just ridiculous. And as you say, it's a threat to freedom of expression. But imagine how much people could exploit it. You'd ask your friend's sister to come into your place of work and start hurling abuse your way in order that you could subsequently take your employer to court and get some sort of payout. So this actually was floated a couple of years ago and blocked by the House of Lords. And I'm disappointed to see that this idea is rearing its ugly head again.
I know, extraordinary. And David Lammy, meanwhile, is over in the Middle East, and he's upsetting the Israelis again by meeting with UNRWA, who are now even though we're now giving them money, giving them British taxpayers' money, recognised by many countries in the world as complicit with Hamas, certainly having had members of their own organisation taking part in the October the 7th massacre, having had them kicked out of that organisation. The Israelis are very clear that UNRWA is not part of the right side of history here. They're part of the bad guys. And he's also been meeting with Mohammed Abbas in Palestine, and just, doing things which would appear to suggest that the British government is not wholly in support of Israel. He also said, I'm amazed he even went there, he also said that he would have Benjamin Netanyahu arrested if he came to Britain.
Well, Israel is one of our long-standing allies, Mike, and it is surrounded by a ring of fire, countries that wish to do it harm, terrorist proxies, mostly, which are the puppets of the Iranian regime. And I think that, you can debate Israel's pursuit of the conflict in Gaza, and certainly it's come under the fate. He had certain allegations levelled against it, but it would vehemently deny some of those. And its survival is contingent on continuing support from the West. At the same time as you've got David Lammy meeting with UNRWA, of course, you have Joe Biden pushing for a ceasefire in his final hours as president of the US, which sort of feels like a very fitting epitaph to 4 years of pretty disastrous foreign policy under President Biden, which has ultimately seen them pursue a strategy of appeasement towards Iran, a country which wishes to do us harm.
Yes. And the other two big stories, which we haven't even touched upon yet, the grooming gangs inquiry, still something that many people in Labour want him to do something about, but they've been sort of barred from voting for it. But we've got one Labour MP now, and Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, urging for it to happen. And of course, the immigration problems, small boats. He's seeing the Prime Minister of Iraq this morning, which is supposedly going to lead to us being able to send more people back, but I'm not sure that will work. There's so many issues that Keir Starmer's battling on all fronts with that he can't be enjoying the job, and, a lot of people don't think he'll last the pace.
Well, I think he's going to go the distance, but it's dawning, among the Labour ranks that they may not win the next general election. And let's not forget, in the run-up to the election last year, Keir Starmer kept talking about his 10-year plans for Britain. He was talking about investment in public infrastructure over the long term. He very much saw himself as having a sort of Blair-style rule that would go on across multiple elections. And, I think that is looking like an ever more distant prospect for the Prime Minister. On the grooming gangs, it's interesting to see. It hasn't really taken long for some figures in the Labour Party to break ranks and come out and say, no, actually what we do need is a national inquiry. Let's see whether Keir Starmer accuses them, as he did the Conservatives, of jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Had Keir Starmer announced a national inquiry into this appalling scandal a couple of weeks ago, then that would be beginning to get underway, and he would be able to focus on some of the other fires that he's needing to put put out at the moment. But instead, this is another controversy, it's another scandal that is running on and on and on. And Keir Starmer looks like he's powerless to do anything about it.
He really does look powerless and rudderless and clueless, apart from anything else. Apart from that, it's all going brilliantly.